My father thinks he buried me. To the crowd in this humid gymnasium watching the dust motes dance in the stage lights, I am Victoria West, the disappointment who cracked under pressure. They see a washout sitting in a folding chair. They don't see the federal badge hidden beneath my jacket or the classified warrant burning a hole in my pocket. I spent 5 years letting them believe I was weak so I could become the only thing strong enough to stop them. Tonight my father will tell the town he erased me. He has no idea that I am the one holding the eraser, and I am about to wipe his legacy clean. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We always appreciate the time you spent here with us. The metal folding chair digs into the small of my back, a sharp reminder that I am on the periphery of this celebration, not at its center. The air in the high school gymnasium is thick with the smell of floor wax, stale popcorn, and the overpowering cologne of proud fathers. Tiny American flags flutter in the hands of toddlers, and a tinny country anthem about small-town grit scratches through the blown-out speakers mounted in the rafters. This is how my town celebrates its gods. Here in the heart of the Midwest, we don't worship celebrities or billionaires. We worship the uniform. Cops, soldiers, firefighters, they are the high priests of this community, the only people who matter. I used to sit in these same bleachers as a little girl staring at the polished brass and crisp creases, dreaming of the day I would be one of them. The irony is, I am one of them. I'm just the kind they aren't allowed to see. I sit at the very end of a row, isolated by choice and by circumstance. 3 rows ahead of me near the center aisle sit my parents, Daniel and Linda West. My father is wearing his best suit, the one that strains across his broad shoulders, his posture rigid with the self-importance of a man who believes he owns the room. My mother sits beside him, a faded ornament, her smile fixed and brittle. They are surrounded by the families of my brother's friends, basking in the collective glory of the graduating class. I watch the back of my father's head, the way he nods enthusiastically at the man next to him. I don't need to see his face to know he's bragging. I know the script. I know it because he wrote it to destroy me. The music dips, and in the brief lull, his voice carries backward, loud and intentional. He knows I'm here. He wants me to hear this. Oh, Jason. Jason's solid as a rock. Daniel booms, leaning in toward the neighboring couple. He made it through, not like his sister. I stiffen my fingernails, digging into the denim of my jeans. The neighbor glances back at me, then quickly looks away, embarrassed. Daniel doesn't lower his voice. Our daughter got ambushed by the first sign of pressure at the academy, he says, laughing a short, cruel bark of a laugh. She just cracked. Some kids aren't built for real service. Shame, really. My mother doesn't correct him. She just offers that weak, apologetic smile and smooths her skirt. I stare at the back of his neck, feeling the familiar burn of injustice in my throat. In their version of the story, I am a failure. I am the washout who couldn't handle the physical fitness test or the shouting drill instructors. They have erased me from the narrative of competence. The truth sits heavy in my chest, a classified weight I carry alone. They don't know about the nights I spent in anonymous federal training centers in Virginia. They don't know about the psychological endurance tests that would break the men my father idolizes. They don't know that the ambush I faced wasn't a panic attack on a jogging track, but a live operation tracking a domestic terror cell that required me to sacrifice holidays, relationships, and my own safety for 3 years. But here in this town, reality is curated. If it isn't on Facebook or printed in the local paper under a headline about local heroes, it doesn't count. The ceremony begins. The graduates march in a sea of navy blue. When my brother Jason West crosses the stage to accept top honors, the crowd erupts. I clap, and I mean it. I love Jason. He's good and he's kind, and he has survived living in our father's shadow. Daniel claps so hard that people turn to look at him, taking ownership of Jason's achievement. He leans over to the couple next to him again, his voice a low growl of triumph. At least one of our kids made it, he says loud enough to slice through the applause. Our son didn't run away. He didn't shame this family. The phrase hits me like a physical blow. Shame this family. He always uses the concept of family as a weapon, a bludgeon to beat us into submission, never a refuge. The applause dies down, and Police Chief Marisol Hayes steps to the podium. She's a formidable woman, sharp-eyed and serious. She adjusts the microphone and scans the crowd, holding a sheet of paper for the special acknowledgments. Her eyes sweep over the front rows, past the mayor, past my preening father, and then they stop. She locks eyes with me in the back row. Her posture shifts, straightening into something sharper. Before we conclude, she says, her voice ringing out slowly and clearly, "We are honored today by the presence of a special guest, Agent Victoria West, joining us in a personal capacity." The silence that follows is absolute. A ripple of murmurs rolls through the gym like a wave. "Agent." I see my father's hand go slack around his program. It slips from his fingers and flutters to the floor. My mother looks as if she has been slapped across the face. On stage, Jason stiffens his eyes, finding mine in the crowd wide with shock. Chief Hayes steps off the dais, bypassing the dignitaries, and walks directly down the center aisle toward me. The crowd parts for her. She stops in front of my folding chair and offers a hand, stiff, formal, respectful. It's almost a salute. "Good to see you again, Agent West," she says, loud enough for the rows nearby to hear. "I wasn't informed you'd be in town. People nearby have gone dead silent. Phones tilt in our direction. My father is frozen, his neck a mottled red." I stand up, keeping my face calm though my insides are vibrating. I take her hand. "I'm off duty, Chief," I reply quietly. "Just here as Jason's sister." The ceremony breaks up in a haze of confusion. I try to make a quick exit, needing air, but the crowd is dense. I make it to the double doors leading to the parking lot before a hand clamps onto my shoulder. I turn to see Daniel. His jaw is clenched so tight a muscle feathers in his cheek. He isn't looking at me with pride. He is looking at me with hatred. He leans in his voice, a low, controlled rumble that is infinitely more dangerous than his shouting. "Whatever you're playing at," he hisses, "you will not threaten this day for Jason. You already sacrificed your place in this family. Don't come crawling back now." I stare at him, stunned by the sheer venom. Before I can answer, before I can defend the life I built from the ashes of his disapproval, my phone vibrates against my hip. It's a specific rhythmic pulse I haven't felt in months. I pull it out. The screen is black with red text: "Priority Notice Agent West. Local node triggered. Report in." I look from the screen to my father's furious eyes. The two halves of my life, my Secret Service and my family's betrayal, are about to collide. To understand why my father looked at me with such unadulterated loathing in that high school hallway, you have to understand the house I grew up in. It wasn't a home, it was a precinct, and Daniel West was the watch commander on a 24-hour shift. He was a county sheriff's deputy back then, a man obsessed with respect, obedience, and the terrifying fragility of reputation. He raised Jason and me on a diet of fear and rigid expectations. He didn't tell bedtime stories. He gave lectures on chain of command. "This family doesn't break," he used to tell us at the dinner table, his eyes scanning our plates for any sign of disorder. "You embarrass me, you embarrass all of us." It was his favorite refrain. But there was another line he loved, one he deployed whenever I showed a spark of independence or defiance. He would lean across the table, his voice dropping to a whisper that made the air in the kitchen go cold. "I brought you into this world, Victoria. Don't make me erase you from it." At first I thought it was a joke, a dark figure of speech. Then as I got older, it stopped sounding like a joke and started sounding like a promise. I wanted to please him. God help me. I wanted that man to look at me the way he looked at his polished badge. When I turned 18, I joined the State Police Academy. I wanted to walk in his footsteps, to wear the uniform that made him a god in our town. I was top of my class in academics, faster than half the boys in the physical drills. But then came the night exercise. It was a simulated domestic violence call, chaotic and screaming, designed to test threat assessment. The actor playing the father figure lunged not with a weapon, but with a raised hand and a shout that sounded exactly terrifyingly like Daniel. I froze. I didn't freeze because I was weak. I froze because I was 18 years old, and suddenly back in my kitchen waiting for the blow to land. The instructors flagged it immediately. Hesitation under pressure. Emotional instability. They branded me a liability. A week later, instead of being expelled in disgrace, I was quietly pulled into an office with two men in charcoal suits who didn't look like cops. They were federal recruiters for a joint cyber intelligence unit. They didn't care that I hadn't fired my weapon in the simulation. They cared that I had analyzed the threat and realized the victim in the scenario was actually the aggressor, something no other recruit had noticed before shooting. They saw a mind that worked in the gray areas. They offered me a position in a classified investigations program strictly off the books. I signed a non-disclosure agreement that was thick as a phone book. It forbade me from telling anyone, including my parents, what I was actually doing. Because my academy file simply said, "Withdrawn." Daniel filled in the blanks with his own narrative. He couldn't handle having a daughter who was recruited for her brain, so he invented a daughter who was broken. He told the story at church at the diner at Jason's Little League games. "She couldn't hack it," he'd say, shaking his head with mock sorrow. "She cracked. She walked out and sacrificed everything we gave her." My mother Linda never contradicted him. Jason was too young to understand the nuances of the lie. I remember coming home once shortly after I started my training and hearing Daniel talking to a neighbor over the backyard fence. "If she wants to erase herself from this family by quitting," he said, sipping his iced tea, "I'll help." That sentence branded itself into my memory hotter than any iron, so I let them believe it. For years, while Daniel told the town I had run off to play city girl and abandoned my family. I was living in windowless rooms lit only by the glow of server racks. I was tracking child exploitation rings across international borders. I was infiltrating domestic terror chat rooms and dismantling scams targeting the very veterans my father claimed to respect. I missed my grandfather's funeral. I missed Christmases. I missed Jason's high school graduation. Every missed event was just more ammunition for Daniel's story that I was selfish, flighty, and weak. I reflected bitterly on it 1,000 times. I didn't abandon my family. I sacrificed the feeling of having a family so that other families wouldn't be ambushed by monsters online. I protected them from the dark, and in return, they threw me into it. The memory fades as I reach my car in the high school parking lot, the gravel crunching under my boots. The sun is bright, but I feel cold. I slip into the driver's seat, my hands shaking slightly as I pull out my phone. The priority alert is still pulsing. I log into the secure app, my thumb moving automatically over the screen. The data stream resolves into a localized map. There is a cyber anomaly, a suspicious unauthorized access attempt, using a specialized code. I trace the origin point. It's not coming from overseas. It's not coming from a city. It's coming from a local server node right here in town. I stare at the screen, a sick feeling churning in my stomach. Out of all the counties in the state, the threat had to be here. It had to be mine. Before I can put the car in gear, the driver's side door is yanked open with enough force to rock the chassis. I look up to see Daniel standing there, his face flushed a deep mottled purple with humiliation and rage. He looms over me, blocking out the sun. "You listen to me, Victoria," he hisses, pointing a thick finger back toward the gymnasium. In there, my son just became the only West worth respecting. As far as I'm concerned, the day you walked out of that academy, my daughter died. He leans closer, his breath smelling of stale coffee and mints. "Whatever you think you are now, you're not my family. I already erased you." I absorb the words. They are meant to destroy me, to reduce me to that scared little girl at the kitchen table. But they don't. Instead, something inside me calcifies. The hurt cauterizes into a cold, hard resolve. I look him dead in the eye, my hand tightening around the phone that holds the secrets he can't even imagine. "You'll regret saying that," I say quietly. He slams the door, and I watch him storm away unaware that the erasure he threatened is about to work in reverse. The Regional Federal Cybercrimes Office is a nondescript gray building sandwiched between a dental supply warehouse and a discount tire shop 2 counties over from where I grew up. It's designed to be invisible just like the work we do. I badge in my hand, still trembling slightly from the adrenaline of the confrontation in the parking lot. The air inside is cool and smells of ozone and recycled coffee. I walk straight to the glass-walled office of my supervisor, Major Rachel Kane. She's a civilian now, but she carries herself with the quiet lethality of her military intelligence background. She doesn't ask about the graduation. She just turns her monitor toward me. "We have a problem," West Kane says, her voice clipped. "The alert you caught. It's not an external attack. It's a breach attempt targeting the First Responders Relief Fund, specifically the localized chapter in your hometown." I stare at the screen, watching the lines of code scroll by. The fund is a sacred institution back home, a charity that collects donations for injured police officers, firefighters, and EMTs. It's the kind of thing people put spare change in jars for at the gas station counter. But as I look closer at the breach logs, my blood runs cold. The access attempt isn't a brute force hack. It's a sophisticated piggyback maneuver using a specific backdoor protocol. I know it because I wrote it. Years ago, during my advanced training, I designed a ghost key for emergency oversight of secure networks. It was supposed to be buried, a theoretical exercise. "Someone is using my signature," I say, the realization sitting heavy in my gut. This means two things: either someone breached our classified archives, or someone is trying to frame me. Kane nods. "Trace it." I sit at the terminal, my fingers flying across the keyboard. I follow the digital breadcrumbs, peeling back layers of routing and obfuscation. The signal bounces through a few proxy servers before landing hard on a static IP address. My stomach drops. The source isn't a foreign hacker or a basement script kiddie. The signal is originating from the secure office network of the West County Sheriff's Association. The room seems to tilt. My father isn't just a member. He is the sheriff and the newly elected president of the Relief Fund Board. The man who just lectured me on honor, who publicly shamed me for quitting, is sitting on top of the very network that is trying to manipulate a federal tool. "We need the financials," I say, my voice sounding hollow to my own ears. If they're accessing the system this aggressively, they're trying to hide something. Through our legal channels, Kane pulls the tax records and internal ledgers. Because the fund is a registered nonprofit, the data is accessible if you have the right warrant. What we find makes me physically ill. The fund takes in massive donations, gala proceeds, community drives, anonymous checks. But the disbursements to injured officers are pitifully low. I scroll through the ledger. A firefighter burned in a chemical fire received a one-time payment of $500. A deputy shot in the leg got a fruit basket and a denial letter for his physical therapy costs. Where did the money go? I find it in the administrative costs column. Massive sums are being funneled into vague categories like logistical consulting and training retreats. Then I see it. A recurring monthly payment of $8,000 to an entity called Leadership Resilience Consulting. I run the business registration. The LLC is registered to a P.O. box in a neighboring state, but the primary signatory is West Family Holdings. My father. He's stealing from them. The man who treats the badge like a holy relic is looting the collection plate. But the betrayal goes deeper than money. I start pulling up the correspondence files attached to the denials. There are emails from widows asking why their claims were rejected, followed by internal notes from my father's account. Application denied. Claimant asking too many questions. Noted for potential insubordination. He has been using the fund as a leverage tool, threatening to blacklist anyone who pushes for the help they were promised. Families in uniform are being financially ambushed by the very man the town calls a hero. I feel a tap on my shoulder. Kane has pulled up another file, something from the deep background check archives. "Victoria," she says softly, "you need to see this. It was flagged when you crossed the system boundaries. It's a scanned document dated 4 years ago. A formal letter of complaint submitted to the State Police Academy the week I left. It's signed by Deputy Daniel West. I read the words and the air leaves my lungs. Subject demonstrates severe emotional instability and compromised judgment. She is unfit for service. For the safety of the community, I recommend my daughter never be allowed a badge or firearm. I stare at the signature. He didn't just let me fail. He tried to ensure I could never succeed. He tried to salt the earth so nothing would ever grow for me again. That wasn't tough love. It was a calculated execution of my future. Kane watches me, her expression unreadable. "Do you want to recuse yourself?" she asks. "This is your father. No one would blame you for stepping back." I look from the letter to the ledger, the stolen money, the denied widows, the years of lies. I think of the way he looked at me in the parking lot, claiming he had already erased me. I stand up, my legs steady now. The hurt is gone, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. "No," I say. "He didn't just sacrifice me. He sacrificed them. He used his family as a shield to rob other families of their survival. This isn't just my revenge anymore. It's justice." I turn back to the screen, the blue light reflecting in my eyes. I'm staying on the case, and I know exactly where to catch him. The banquet hall is a shrine to everything my father holds dear. It is draped in heavy velvet curtains and American flags, the tables set with white linens that are just a little too starched. The air smells of cheap roast beef floor wax and the heavy musky cologne of 100 men in dress uniforms. This is the annual First Responders Gala, the night the town comes to kneel at the altar of the badge. I walk in through the side doors, not as the daughter who failed, but as a federal consultant on the guest list, a title vague enough to grant access, but boring enough to avoid scrutiny. I'm wearing a simple black dress that blends into the shadows, my badge clipped to my belt beneath the fabric cold against my skin. I scan the room. I see Jason near the front, looking pale in his new uniform. Earlier this evening, by the loading dock where the caterers were smoking, I showed him the file. I showed him the diverted funds, the denied claims for widows, and the letter our father wrote to destroy me. I watched his world fracture in real time. He didn't scream. He just looked at the papers, then at me and said, "If this is true, I can't stand next to him on that stage." He is my only ally inside the room, aside from Elena Price, a young widow sitting at table 9. She catches my eye and gives a barely perceptible nod. She knows what's coming. The trap is set. My team is parked in unmarked sedans 2 blocks away waiting for my signal, but the real weapon is in my hand. I've synced my phone to the venue's AV system, bypassing the laptop running the slideshow. I have a direct line to the projector. The lights dim and the room falls silent as the spotlight hits the stage. The Lifetime Service Award is announced. My father walks up the steps, bathing in the applause. He looks invincible, his chest puffed out, the very image of the benevolent patriarch. He takes the microphone, his voice booming with practiced humility. He talks about sacrifice. He talks about the thin blue line. He talks about the relief fund as if it were his own personal ministry, a holy mission to protect the families of the fallen. Then he looks out into the darkness of the hall, and I know he finds me. His eyes lock onto where I'm standing in the back. "Raising children is like command," he says, his voice taking on a harder edge. "Some people walk away when it gets hard. They abandon the people who raised them because they can't handle the weight of duty. But real heroes don't run. They don't erase their responsibilities." The room erupts in applause. People nod, thinking he's speaking in generalities, but I feel the target on my chest. I don't flinch. I just slide my thumb over the glass screen of my phone and hit execute. The patriotic music cuts out with a sharp electronic glitch. The slideshow of smiling officers and flag-waving children vanishes. In its place, projected on the massive screen behind him, is a bank statement. It is a high-resolution scan of a transfer $8,000 from the relief fund to West Family Holdings. A gasp ripples through the room. Before the confusion can settle, I swipe. The next image is an email thread from Daniel's account mocking a widow's request for tuition help. Then the final blow. The letter he wrote to the academy. The handwriting is unmistakably his magnified 10 feet tall. I recommend my daughter never be allowed a badge or firearm. The silence in the room is total. The only sound is the whir of the projector fan. My father turns, sees the screen, and freezes. His mouth opens, but no sound comes out. I step out of the shadows and walk down the center aisle. I don't shout. I don't scream. I speak in a voice that carries to the back of the room, calm and terrifyingly clear. My name is Victoria West, I say. You've heard what my father says about me. Now I'd like you to see what he's been doing to you. I gesture to the screen. That isn't a clerical error. That is your money. The money meant for injured officers for families like Elena Price's has been funding his consulting firm for 5 years. He didn't just lie about me. He lied to every single one of you. Pandemonium breaks. Chairs scrape against the floor. Someone shouts, "Is this real?" My father looks at the screen, then at the crowd turning on him. He drops the microphone, it hits the floor with a deafening squeal, and storms off the stage, heading for the side exit. He thinks he can run. I meet him in the narrow service hallway blocking his path. He corners me, his face twisted into a mask of pure malice. It's just us, the roar of the crowd muffled by the heavy doors. He leans in, shaking with rage. "You think you've won," he spits. "You just destroyed your family. You'll walk out of here alone. No one will ever stand by you. I'll make sure the whole county turns its back until you don't exist. I will erase you, Victoria." I hold up my phone. The screen is glowing red. "Recording," I say calmly. "You just threatened a federal agent, on tape, in a building wired with cameras." The side doors burst open. Major Kane and Chief Hayes step in, followed by 4 agents in raid jackets. My father steps back, looking for an escape route, but the path behind him is blocked. Jason stands there. He isn't looking at his father with admiration anymore. He's looking at him like he's a stranger. He steps sideways, cutting off the exit. "Sheriff West," Chief Hayes says, her voice cold steel. "You're under arrest." I watch the handcuffs click around his wrists. I watch his face crumble, not from fear of jail, but from the realization that his shield is gone. He looks at Jason, then at me, searching for the fear he used to plant in us. He finds nothing. I stand tall, my hands steady as they lead him away past the stunned, silent crowd. He tried to bury me, but all he did was dig his own grave. The fallout hits the county like a shockwave. For weeks, the local news cycle is dominated by a single scrolling headline: "Beloved Sheriff accused of misusing relief funds." The video of my father being led out of the gala in handcuffs plays on a loop in the window of the electronics store on Main Street. The town is fractured. There are those who look at me with undisguised hostility, whispering that I am the traitor who destroyed her own blood for 15 minutes of fame. They say I should have kept it in the family. But then there are the others. The widows who stop me in the grocery store, their eyes wet with tears, pressing my hand silently between the canned vegetables and the bread. The injured firefighters who nod at me from across the street. I walk through the aisles of the supermarket, feeling the weight of 100 stares. A year ago, I would have shrunk from this attention, terrified of being seen as the disappointment my father claimed I was. Now I keep my chin up. I am not shrinking. I am observing. I am no longer the ghost in my own town. Jason comes to my apartment 3 days after the arrest. He is still wearing his uniform, but he looks exhausted, the crisp lines of his shirt softened by days of stress. He sits on my couch, turning his cap over and over in his hands. "He's our dad, Vic," he says, his voice cracking. "I know what he did. I saw the proofs. But he's still Dad. He's facing 10 years. They want me to testify about the conversation at the loading dock." He looks up at me, his eyes pleading for permission to fold, to retreat into the comfortable lie we lived in for so long. I sit beside him, but I don't coddle him. "Being family isn't supposed to mean we cover for the worst in each other, Jason," I tell him gently. "It's supposed to mean we protect each other from it. He threatened me. He stole from the people you swore an oath to protect. If you lie for him, you become him. Jason sits in silence for a long time, the clock on the wall ticking away the seconds of his youth. Finally, he nods. He decides to testify. My mother is harder. Linda knocks on my door a week later. She looks 10 years older than she did at the graduation. Her hair is unkempt, her eyes rimmed with red. She doesn't come in. She stands in the hallway clutching her purse like a shield. You destroyed him, she says, her voice trembling with a grief that curdles into accusation. He spent his whole life building that name, and you burned it down in one night. I look at the woman who watched me disappear for years and never once asked where I had gone. He did that to himself, Mom, I answer softly. He built a name on stolen money and lies. I just stopped him from destroying anyone else. She shakes her head, unable to process a world where Daniel West isn't the victim. She steps back, turning toward the stairs. I don't know how to be your mother right now, she says. It hurts a sharp, familiar ache in my chest, but as I watch her walk away, I realize something profound. I no longer need her approval to exist. Slowly, the wounds in the community begin to stitch together. The relief fund is seized, audited, and restructured under federal oversight. Families who were denied help for years finally receive the checks they need to pay mortgages and medical bills. Chief Hayes reaches out to me, inviting me to give a training seminar on cyber safety and fraud prevention for the local first responders. Standing in the front of that room, looking out at the faces of men and women who once bought my father's lies, I feel a sense of belonging. I haven't felt since I was a child. I am not an outsider here anymore. Before the bank forecloses on my childhood home, I return one last time to collect the few things that belong to me. The house is quiet, stripped of its grandeur. I walk down the hallway lined with pictures. It is a shrine to Jason at prom, Jason at football camp, Jason graduating. There are almost no pictures of me, but I keep looking. I pull down a dusty frame from the back of a shelf in the den. Hidden behind a generic landscape print, I find it an old photo of me in a Little League jersey, grinning with Daniel's hand resting heavily on my shoulder. It was taken back when he still looked proud before I developed a mind of my own. I slide the photo out. I don't take it because I miss him. I take it because it is proof. I was always here. I drive to the small park where Daniel used to take us on Sunday afternoons. The sun is setting, casting long shadows across the empty swings. I sit on a bench and pull a folded piece of paper from my pocket. It's a photocopy of the letter he wrote to the academy, the one condemning me as unfit. I take a lighter from my bag and touch the flame to the corner of the page. I watch the paper curl and blacken, the hateful words turning to ash and floating away on the evening breeze. I keep the original in a file at home, not out of bitterness, but as a record of what I survived. For years, I think, watching the last embers die out, I thought my parents got to decide if I belonged. I thought they could erase me, but the truth is, you can't erase what you didn't create. My life, my choices, my service, that was mine. Jason walks across the grass and sits down next to me. He doesn't say anything for a while, just watches the sunset. Can we start over? He asks finally, his voice quiet. I look at him then, out at the town lights flickering on in the valley below. We don't have to start over, I say, resting my hand on his arm. We just have to start honestly. In the distance, a siren wails someone else's crisis, someone else's call to duty. For the first time in my life, I'm not running from my past. My father tried to erase me. Instead, he drew a line in the sand, and I finally stepped across it. On this side of the line, I'm not his disappointment. I'm Victoria West, and I get to decide who I am. And so Victoria West finally reclaimed her own narrative, stepping out of the shadow of betrayal and into her hard-won truth. What did you think of her confrontation? Let us know in the comments below. We read every single comment of your thoughts. If you enjoyed this tale of justice, hit that subscribe button. Thank you for listening. This has been a story from Revenge Hour. We'll see you next time.